Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week or whenever we tape a show on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also get more information and listen in or see previous shows at this website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a relatively new friend of mine, but she is the amazing Candace Taylor. And I don't see you wearing them today, Candace, but I find you amazing because you have so many different hats, So you laugh, but we're talking today. We'll maybe just talk about a couple of the hats you're wearing today. And today we're speaking specifically about a show you're directing. Is that correct?
Yes.
At ACT. And the name of the show is what?
It's Native Gardens.
Okay. And what I like about it, I'm really excited because it's a show I haven't seen before, and I guess, is this show been around for a while?
Probably about 4 or 5 years. I think it debuted in Cleveland or Cincinnati in 2019. It was commissioned. So it was written specially for them, and it's been very popular. It's been produced a lot around the country.
And what's exciting for me, though, is not that I know, but I don't think it's ever been in this area.
No, I don't think it has.
And what's so great about that, Candace, I guess a couple of years ago, every theater was repeating every show, the one that comes to mind, Putnam County Spelling Bee, and I kid you not, in 1 year, like at least 4 different productions of it, I guess it was on sale that year or something, if people could get it cheap, right? So, no, but when I said exciting though, but it's exciting for me when I see a show I've never seen before. And so, Native Gardens, talk a little bit about it. If I could put you on the spot in, say, next 2.5 hours, if you have a summary of what the show is all about.
Well, I will tell you the premise, and I want to keep some things for people to see, but the show is by a woman named Karen Zacharias, and she is an immigrant from Cuba, and she has become one of the most produced playwrights in the country. And this play is it takes place in Washington, D.C., in a very nice, stately neighborhood, in the backyards of 2 houses. So these neighbors, and one of the houses lives a couple that's been there a long time. They're conservative. They work for the government. They are white. And then into the next house moves a young Latino couple, who one is an attorney and the other is a graduate student. And the woman is pregnant. They move in and everything is fine, and they, like each other as neighbors until they find out that the property line is wrong.
Oh.
And that you can imagine the kinds of things that happen from them. We've actually seen actual items from that Nextdoor app, where
sure,
complaining about exactly the same things that people complain about in this play. Your tree drops acorns in my yard. And one of the couples is the couple that's been there a long time, has a very stately and manicured garden that he weeds and sprays pesticides and takes care of very ardently, and he hopes to win a gardening contest. And the neighbors that move in, the young woman is a fan of native gardens, and that means native plants that are from that area, originated in that area. And she really doesn't like the idea of pesticides at all. So there's a lot of disputes about the garden. There's a big oak tree. There's disputes about the acorns. There's a fence that becomes the focal point of all of the things. And even though the play could be very serious, take these issues very seriously, it's a hilarious comedy. where it just demonstrates how far people can go when they get in this kind of dispute. And then what I love about it is at the end, it all gets resolved, and you can go away from the theater having enjoyed the play, understand the resolution, and still have a little bit of political satire and sting in there. That's some of it. I don't want to give away some of the best laugh lines, but it's really hilarious how even the characters themselves turn from what the expected stereotype of that type of person would do, and switches, and they end up being like the other people that they're
Well, just your description of it has me looking forward to it, because I don't think I ever told you, but in another life, I was a mediator for neighborhood disputes. And this is exactly what this is all about. You'd be amazed, Candace, what people would battle about, and never ending. And some of that, I'm glad you told me there's a positive resolution, because oftentimes it wasn't positive, and people get really nasty. And I can't wait to see it, because what they get nasty about is just incredible, like property lines. Who cares, whether it's something 2 inches over or 4, whatever. But it sounds like it'll be a fun show, but provocative show. It kind of some real issues as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's my favorite kind of play these days. One that can raise serious subjects, but that don't leave you kind of in despair at the end.
Or at least
the other thing is the garden. The setting is just gorgeous. It's the backyards of these two houses and their gardens and their yards, and it's really beautifully put together.
Well, if you can, or if the name's handy, give a shout out. Who is responsible for the set?
The name is Jill. That's the first name. I'm getting there I cannot remember.
Okay, I should know it too. And she's married. Jill Summers. Is it still Summers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, just for that alone, Jill does amazing work. So I really can't wait to see this.
Yes.
In terms of a garden.
It's a beautiful, beautiful set.
It doesn't, whatever she does really is just magic. So just to see the set alone. Talk also about, because again, not only do I not know the show, but talk about some of your performers in the show, if you would.
Yes. Well, the show has 4 actors. They are the 2 couples who live in the houses, and then we have some background actors. Our stage crew actually serves as the landscaping crew.
Oh, very great.
Our actors are Kathy O'Connor, who plays Virginia Butley, and her husband, Frank Butley, is played by David Mykoff. And the younger couple is Megan Marcello, who people may have seen in Our Town earlier.
Oh, okay, sure.
And then a newcomer to the stage is Kelvin Bonilla, who is playing Megan's husband, or Tanya and Pablo are that couple. And Kelvin is playing Pablo, and this is his first play.
Really?
Yes, so he's just been amazing. He came in and auditioned. He found out about the audition from a group chat he's on, and he came and auditioned and said right away, "This is my first play. I'm not sure what to do." And he has been soaking up information like a sponge. I think he'll be a real nice addition to the Asheville acting pool.
Well, how cool is that? Because you're saying he had never acted before in Asheville or anywhere?
No, never anywhere.
Wow, and one of the things which I think Asheville Community Theater deserves credit for is, as you said, they oftentimes bring in people, they'll have some regulars. And just the 2 you mentioned, as a shout out to them, Kathy and David are some of the most amazing actors. I can just see, as you're describing it, I can see the both of them as the couple, and I can't wait, just see them. It's a treat.
Yeah.
So certainly put together a good cast. And talk a little bit, Candace, sometimes I wonder too, about choosing a cast. Now, as a director, were you involved in that, or was the cast already set?
No, I was there. I had the auditions and the callbacks. Yes.
Talk about that process, because I imagine that's certainly challenging for a director. Like the auditions, how many people auditioned for it?
Oh, Oh, I'm
Ballpark.
not really sure. Somewhere probably between 25 and 30.
Wow, that must be tough. Were these also in person, or did you do them via
No,
video?
these were in person. These were in person. Everybody came to the theater and had, I think most of them had read the play before they auditioned and had chosen roles that they thought they were appropriate for. And just sort of one by one, people come in and read the parts that they have selected. And then sometimes I will ask them if it's all right if I give them an adjustment, and usually they say yes. And I might give them some direction to see if for instance, if somebody comes in and they have sort of an interesting manner about them and they look to be someone who could be that character, but maybe say they are very soft spoken and I know the character needs to be loud, then I might ask them to read the piece again. And I might say, this is a very bombastic character, so the more you can do to make them seem bigger and louder, that would be great. And then they'll do it again, and I'll see if they can make that change, which is important because it sets up right away the relationship. If I'm going to be able to speak in a way to give direction to them that they can understand and interpret, then I can find some of that out right then. Sometimes you might speak to someone and just what you say doesn't make sense they don't understand it the way you do. That becomes important. It becomes important if somebody is too timid to raise their voice to play that character. Those kinds of.
You're giving some useful advice, I think, to any theater folks listening to this. That's to do with something you mentioned about if you're going for an audition, how important is to read the play beforehand?
It's very important. It's very important. Plenty of people, I'm sure, have been cast in plays without having read it beforehand, but it just gives you a leg up. You know what is expected of the character, even if you've just skimmed it, to see where the character starts and where they end, just to see what journey they go on. And for the most part, most plays, unless they're brand new original plays, you can get a copy of them ahead of time to take a look at it. It's tremendously important, at least to me.
Now, talk also a little bit about the process. So somebody comes in for an audition, and like I said, the one actor, incredible, never auditioned before. What happens at an audition, if you would describe what takes place?
Oh, sure. Well, you would come in and usually you either have a reservation for the time of your audition, or you sign in so that people would go in the order they came in. For the original audition, generally you have a selection of scenes or monologues to look at. Usually there's a choice of, if you want to do this one or that one. I like to usually choose things for people to read that are relatively early in the plays, because, and this is not typical, I know other directors feel exactly the opposite, but I like to choose things early in the plays to see how first of all, don't want to challenge people too much by like, here's the part where the suicide has just happened. That's a little hard to throw somebody into. And also I feel like it all starts at the beginning and they grow to something else. So to try to have them do the end before they've even had a chance to get a feel for the beginning, but that's where the reading the play ahead of time comes in handy. Just in case you're asked to read something from the end, what the beginning is. I like to be able to work with an actor and to discover the character together, rather than to go in with a sort of already formed idea of what I'm looking for.
How long does that take? How long are they with you?
Oh, anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes, and then After that, once we've gone through everybody, we usually have what is called callbacks. And at the callbacks, you basically reduce the list. So if 30 people came in for the first audition, you would reduce it to a few people for each role. I think in the callbacks that we had, I think we had 3 or 4 people for each role come back. And so that was probably about 12. So we had gone from about 30 to 12. And then when the callbacks happen, what I do is put the people in groups, in scenes. So I have the, 2 couples read scenes together, and I mix and match people. And then I'll have, the 4 people read together just to see what kinds of people work well together, sound good together. You don't want like 3 people with screechy voices or something. So that's the second audition, the callbacks. And then after that, it's usually cast. And for me, at least, pretty much by the time everybody has gone home, I've already know who I don't generally don't have to think it over overnight. The exception to that is at school when I'm teaching. Sometimes I think it over, give myself 24 hours, because at school, sometimes I'm trying to have a student learn something. And sometimes that person who needs to learn that thing is not necessarily the best person for that role, but it's good for them as a student to have that experience. So sometimes I have to think a little bit longer about casting my students, but somewhere at like ACT, pretty much by the time everybody left that night, I was pretty sure who I wanted to work with. And luckily all of them said yes. That also happens. You offer a role and they don't want it.
How about the use of something that's become popular, certainly with COVID it was, and that's video auditions. Have you done that at all?
I've done that at NC Stage.
Right. Yeah. And how does that work, or how do you feel about those?
I don't love it. I have been very lucky. I have cast shows by video and been very successful in the casting. The people that I have met that way and then have come in to do the shows have been, to a person, fantastic actors. However, as I said, when I was teaching Shakespeare online during COVID, I'm not in film for a reason. I like the stage. I like being in the same room with people. I like that kind of storytelling. And so for me, while it's handy, especially when people don't have an opportunity to come to a theater to audition, you get a much broader selection of people, which is great, but I'd much rather be in person. It's just my preference of being with people.
One of the toughest things I would imagine for you as a director is having to cast and then having people not get the part. You mentioned, like, I know the 2 leads you have are David and Kathy, and they're just fantastic. So I can't see anybody else being in it. But Asheville, we're blessed in that we have a lot of very fine actors. Mm-hmm. That must be a tough thing to have to be able to not choose the people, but tell people they don't get the part.
It is. It's difficult. But everybody going in knows that's part of it. So you do the hard work of telling them. And luckily for me as a director, it's not my job to tell them. So
okay.
I can maybe talk to them afterward if they're really upset or something. And with students, that does happen. There are students that get their heart set on a role and then don't get it. And there's a lot of upset sometimes, but I do my best to avoid that before it even happens. If a student has their mind set on playing Juliet, and I know that there are 6 other Juliets that are gonna probably beat that person out, I try to soften the blow beforehand and say, this is very competitive. So you're going to want to be really prepared, and you have to know that it might not come out the way you want. And then there's other things where I've had experiences where I had a student who couldn't come to the audition for a show I was directing and begged, I have to be out of town. Can't I please do it later? And I was like, no, that's not fair. Everybody else is going to be there at the audition. I can't really let you jump the line. And she just kept coming back. And she showed up the night of callbacks. And I said, oh, okay, just do it. Turned out she was fantastic. I gave her the role. She was fantastic in the role, and she's one of my former students that has appeared on Broadway.
Oh,
I went
really?
and saw her in a show on Broadway.
Give a shout out. Name is?
Jessie Walker.
Okay, very exciam So Jessie's watching.
Yes. Right. So it's I am happy when I am proved wrong, when my first assumptions are not the ones. When somebody is persistent like that and it pays off, I'm thrilled for both of us because we have that relationship now.
Well, you also mentioned something that I think maybe you can do as an educator to teach people too. But if you don't get a part, it's not the end of the world. And what really upsets me, and you probably hear it all the time, is when people don't get a part, they'll say they won't do anything else, or they don't want a smaller part in the play. They only want talk about what would be, I guess, an ideal actor's response if they don't get a part. What should the actor think or say?
Well, I think that's an individual thing, but I'll tell you, from my director's point of view, I like people who want to be there and want to be in plays, and they don't care how they're involved. That they will be happy to be the smallest role in the show, or run the lights, or sweep the stage, or be the lead. I like actors who like to collaborate and work as a company. However, that's not practical for everybody. Some people, if don't feel it's worth their time, maybe to spend, a couple of months rehearsing a show to be a small part, and that certainly I can understand that. But my preference is for people who are an ensemble, and that's very much like actually the last 3 shows I've done that since I've met you. Landscape of I keep doing that. Lifespan of a Fact, Be Here Now, and this one were all small ensemble casts, where pretty much everybody was in the rehearsal room every day, and that makes for a really terrific, not only bonding experience, but the show, they can play off each other better. They know each other better. They've seen each other build these characters. They've been there to discover the jokes, and for me, that's the fun of being in theater. We're in the same room, we're working on something together, and the ideas can come from anywhere. I'm just there as the outside eye.
Well, a compliment to you, and I guess it was my bad for not picking this up, but Lifespan of a Fact, did you direct that also?
Yes.
Oh, was that a fantastic show? We hadn't been friendly then or gotten to know each other, but that really knocked my socks off, that particular show.
Yeah, that was a terrific show.
Yeah, but I mean,
hearing about it.
Yeah, but thank you. I just love that. Yeah. I love the other show you directed at NC Stage. So on Native Gardens, let's just talk about some of the key details. It opens, I guess, February 10th. Is that correct? Yes. Runs till when?
February 26th.
Okay, and if folks want to get tickets, great. If folks want to get tickets, what's the best bet?
The best thing to do is go to ashevilletheater.org, and the website will pop up, and it'll lead you right to, I think it says buy tickets.
Okay, that's a subtle hint. Buy tickets now. And we should mention you spell theater the correct way. Is that correct?
Theater in the French way, in the R-E way.
Well, yeah, I should ask you as an educator. So how do you spell it with the R-E? Is that the correct way?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's no correct. There, I learned this from my teachers when I was in graduate school, and that's my practice. But in practicality, it doesn't work. They said that RE, the
Right.
French way, describes the theater in the global sense, in the like all of it, actors, plays, writers, just the whole art part of theater. And the ER, the English spelling, is, or I should say the American spelling, describes the building. So you go to a theater to see theater.
Well, excepting Asheville Community Theater is spelled, it's the building, and it's RE, right?
No, yeah, they're RE. They're spelling it as the global, in the
Oh,
global.
okay. But if you go to see theater, it could be ER. Is that
It could
correct?
be ER. And that's why I say why it's confusing. And so I just choose RE usually, because if you're writing something and you're talking about the global theater and you use RE, and then later you're talking about the building, you use ER, people go, wait, you're spelling it two different ways. So, it's a great artistic thought.
Well,
It
thanks for
doesn't make any practical sense.
clarifying it for me. I'll ask you to clarify the same thing too. When I talk about actors now, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, I use actors overall, male and female. Do you have a feeling on that in terms of your actors in this play, or do you have actors and actresses?
Yeah, I use the term pejoratively. I say actors
Okay.
most of the time, just because I went to acting school, and we were serious, and so the thought was actor sounds more serious than actress, but I know. I mean, actress is a diminutive, so I guess you could say it is less serious, but
Well, my thinking also, though, no offense to you, but I don't call you a directress. So it's directors. So I don't understand why you have actors and actresses.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's just old fashioned, old with the E on the end, kind of oldie fashioned. those terms.
And one other shout out, if I can, talk a little bit about another important person in this upcoming play, and that's your stage manager. And your stage manager is who?
My stage manager is a person named Jenna McIntyre, and they are a student in high school.
Wow.
Jenna turned 17 while we were rehearsing this play.
That's pretty unusual. And talk how important the role of the stage manager is.
Oh, the stage manager is of supreme importance. The stage manager, I like to describe it as the hub of a wheel. The stage manager is the person through whom all communications go, and they sort of keep everybody on the right track as far as schedules and what we're doing and when costume fittings are, and whether or not we got that shovel. They're that person. So it's a very important job. And then when the show starts to run, now that we're into performances, Jen is responsible for making all the lighting and sound things happen. It's what they call calling a show for a stage manager, and the stage manager sits with a microphone, and when the lights and music are supposed to happen, we'll say, cue number 1, go, cue number 3, go. And
That's pretty cool. Is this her first role as a stage manager?
I'm not sure. Jenna has an extremely mature aspect. So I'm guessing that they've done it before, but I'm not completely sure.
And to put you on the spot again, let me ask you this in terms of a recommendation. How do you feel about actors or actresses also being stage managers or ever doing that job?
I don't have any problem with it. I think it's a good way to chip in if it's necessary. I tried it.
Oh, did you really?
Oh yeah, I was in undergrad. I was an assistant stage manager once, and I was a stage manager once. And in the middle of stage managing, when I was screaming at people for not listening to me, I thought, I don't have the temperament for this job. So that was the end of my stage managing career. It was not for me.
Well, one of the things that kind of also amazes me about you, Candace, is that you do a lot of different things. So we mentioned that you're now directing this play. You've also acted, and you mentioned you might do some acting this summer. And I guess in your spare time, and I'm looking, we're laughing here, but I don't see the roller skates, in terms of your spare time, because in between doing all this other stuff, you also have a full-time gig at Warren Wilson.
Yes,
And
yes.
what do you do there?
I'm chair of the theater department at Warren Wilson, so I teach the theater classes and direct most of the plays, although we have some guests coming in the near future. And I do all the other college professor things, advise students and sit on committees and hire people to teach dance classes and that kind of thing.
How long have you been at Warren Wilson?
This is my 13th year.
Okay, who would have thunk, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, so in other life, I was a college professor, and it's certainly that alone keeps you busy. But on top of doing all this other stuff you're doing, and we were talking off the air that Warren Wilson has an exciting play coming up as well.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'm gonna have to make it really short because I got to run to another thing.
With your
But
roller
the
skates.
play is called Pterodactyls. It's by Nikki Silver. It is going to be up at Warren Wilson on the 25th and 26th of March.
Okay,
and you can find information online.
Okay, and I'll let you get out of here, Candace. Thank you much as always.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night at the show.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, you be well. Thanks again.